Okay, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Okay, can we have some hush? Right, good afternoon. Let's all sit down. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, my fellow unionists. Right. Because I speak to you, of course, as a proud representative of the Conservative and Unionist Party. And I want to begin quickly by thanking my friend Christopher Moran for everything he does for Northern Ireland, helping me to secure this invitation. And I want to thank the people of Northern Ireland who helped me to deliver an absolutely crucial political promise, as has just been mentioned, because it was more than 10 years ago that I was cycling along Holborn, and I was almost crushed by a bendy bus so long and so patently unsuited to the streets of London that I vowed there and then to get elected mayor just to remove it, and at the same time to remove from office the left-wing IRA sympathising, United Ireland promoting semi-Marxist who then inhabited City Hall. And we did. And we defeated this representative of the old London hard left, and we got those German-manufactured bendy buses off the streets, and instead we commissioned a vehicle that has become an icon, a piece of design that is featured in Bond films and is used reflexively to identify the hip, modern, thriving, multicultural, funkopolitan City of London. And with its seats made in Telford, its destination blinds from Manchester, its flooring from Liskeard, its engines from Darlington, its wheelchair ramps from Hodston in Hertfordshire, it would already be pretty representative of this country. But when you consider that it was conceived, designed and assembled here in Northern Ireland, in Ballymena, by Wrightbus, I believe that bus is the United Kingdom on wheels. And whenever you see one of these noble, elephant-browed beasts, you are looking at a piece of Northern Ireland in London. So I want to say thank you to the workforce in Ballymena today, and I, of course, particularly want to thank our friends in the DUP. In the last 18 months, you have supplied, Nigel, Arlene, all of you, the essential components, the fuel, the wheels, pick your metaphor, your vehicular metaphor, without which the government of the United Kingdom could not have been carried on. Without you, it is likely that the mighty engine of the UK economy would have stuttered and stalled. And indeed, if it wasn't for you, then there is a risk that the union itself would have been placed in jeopardy. And we all know why the DUP has been so crucial, because there really was a danger after that election in June last year that the government of the whole UK could have been handed over to Jeremy Corbyn, a man whose economic policies would mean ruin for this country, pointlessly renationalising businesses at a cost to the taxpayer of hundreds of billions of pounds, recklessly expropriating 10% of the equity of companies across the land, a Labour leader who, with his putative Chancellor, John McDonnell, actually believes that the real problem with the Venezuelan economy is that Hugo Chavez was not able to implement the entirety of his demented socialist agenda. And as if that were not bad enough, this is a man who, with his ally, actually I think it's his puppet master, McDonnell, has not only campaigned for a united Ireland, but to the best of my knowledge, has failed to condemn the terrorist atrocities of the IRA. And it's thanks to that arrangement between our two parties, of which Philip Hammond spoke last night, quite rightly, that we were able to stop Corbyn from taking over. And today we're looking, therefore, at a whole country that is benefiting from sensible, moderate, one-nation Conservative government. We have unemployment running at the lowest level since 1975. We have real wage growth. At last, we have the deficit falling, and the UK, once again, one of the fastest growing economies in Europe. So I say to our allies in the DUP, thank you for your courageous and principled stance. And I hope you agree that it is absolutely vital that we keep this partnership going and we keep this confidence and supply arrangement going, and that we are not so complacent as to abandon the government of this country to a man whose avowed policy is to break up this country. And so we should work together to ensure that the whole UK, Northern Ireland included, can seize the opportunities of Brexit. Now, you've heard already from Nigel, you're going to hear from Arlene. I'm just with a warm-up act for Arlene. And I don't want to anticipate what she's going to say. I keep singing that song to myself. We are on the verge of making a historic mistake. And I just say this, unless we change course, we are going to stay in the customs union, we're going to stay in the single market, and we're going to be rules takers. And unless we junk this backstop, we are going to find that Brussels has got us exactly where they want us. A satellite state. We will continue to accept the terms under which they have a surplus in trade in goods with us of £95 billion, but with no power, no British influence on those terms. And so we won't be able to do any trade deals of any significance or any value, because what they've done in Brussels is a very, very clever trick. They've made Northern Ireland their indispensable bargaining chip in the future negotiations. And if you read, who's read the withdrawal agreement? I have, unlike a certain Labour leader that I could mention. If you read the withdrawal agreement, you can see that we're actually witnessing the birth of a new country called UK brackets NI, or UCNI. Read it, seriously. This is how Brussels sees it. UCNI is no longer exclusively ruled by London or Stormont. UCNI is in large part to be ruled by Brussels, and UCNI will have to accept large swathes of of EU regulations. I wish I was going to accept UK regulations. EU regulations now and in the future, on the whole range of Brussels policy making, on lawnmower noise, the labelling of sardines, on the use of chocolate coins and tokens that may be deemed to resemble a euro, on the use, I kid you not, check it out, on the use of personal recreational watercraft. Now, of course, nowhere has a more illustrious history than Northern Ireland when it comes to the building of recreational watercraft. The Titanic springs to mind. And now is the time to point out the iceberg ahead. Because these obligations won't just apply to current EU regulations, but to anything Brussels devises in the future. So look, I mean, to be perfectly serious about it, suppose a Northern Irish inventor were to come up with as is possible, were to come up with an example of a personal recreational watercraft that was perfectly safe, but in some way revolutionary or cost-cutting or whatever, a Northern Irish peddler or paddleboard or whatever it happened to be that threatens to demolish the competitors in Italy or Germany. You could imagine such a circumstance. Then it will be all too likely, as we saw, by the way, with James Dyson and his hairdryers, remember what happened, and his vacuum cleaners, that the Brussels Commission, under pressure from the lobby groups on the continent, will legislate in such a way as to ban or to make uneconomic that UK invention, and not just for sale in the remainder of the EU, of course not, but they will ban it for sale in Northern Ireland as well. And so as a country, as the United Kingdom, we will be faced with a Hobson's choice. If we genuinely wanted to do free trade deals, if we wanted to cut tariffs on, as we should, by the way, on food to make food cheaper for our people, from sub-Saharan Africa or whatever, if we wanted to vary our regulation, then we would have to leave Northern Ireland behind as an economic semi-colony of the EU. And we would be damaging the fabric of the Union with regulatory checks and even customs controls between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, on top of those extra regulatory checks down the Irish Sea that are already envisaged in the withdrawal agreement. Now, I have to tell you, no British Conservative government could or should sign up to any such arrangement. And so, our answer at the moment is rather desperately to make sure that the whole of the UK stays in the backstop, with the EU having the power to decide whether and when we can ever leave. Why should they grant us permission to leave? Let me ask you, why should they? We'll have handed over the £39 billion, and it's not in their interest to see us going off and doing those free trade deals. And they don't want to see goods coming in from third countries undercutting their vast exports to the UK. So think to yourselves, what price will they ask in the forthcoming negotiations for giving us that freedom to leave the backstop? They might very well ask us for a special deal on immigration, so making a further nonsense of Brexit. They might ask us to accept the whole gamut of EU legislation on services as well as goods and agri-foods, and all the level playing field commitments that we have already made and have committed to make in the future as well. In other words, this deal risks further economic and political humiliation, and we are locking ourselves by treaty and making it impossible to negotiate our way out in the second half of the talks. This is not what the people of the United Kingdom voted for. It is self-evidently not taking back control of our laws. It is not taking back control of our borders, not when we're still collecting EU tariffs and sending 80% of the value of them to Brussels. And it remains to be seen quite how much of our money we will really control and how much they will charge for this arrangement. And if we go down this route, I have to warn you that the people of our country will rumble it. And they will detect that this is not Brexit. And that, by the way, is the surest way to invite electoral revenge and to run the risk, I'm afraid, of a Corbyn government. That's the risk we run. So we need to get out of this hole. And people say there isn't a plan. Of course there's a plan. It's been mentioned many, many times. Here is what we do. Number one, we need, of course, to bank what is sensible in the withdrawal agreement, the good progress that has been made on the rights of citizens, the rights of workers, mutual recognition of professional qualifications, fair and reasonable deal on benefits. None of that was in any serious danger. The political declaration also contains a lot of good sense about our continuing policy coordination with our friends and partners across the Channel on home affairs, counter-terrorism, foreign policy, and all the rest of it. As the Prime Minister rightly said this week, she said it many times, and she's always right, on this point. She's always right on this point. We are leaving the EU, but we are not leaving Europe. And under any circumstances, I know it will be your wish, and it is my profound wish, that we will have a deep, intimate, and productive friendship and partnership with our friends in the EU. But we do need to junk the backstop. and agree that neither side will introduce a hard border in Northern Ireland. Both governments, London, Dublin and Brussels, have already made clear they have no such intention. Michel Barnier has said himself that the technical solutions exist and that the whole subject should be remitted to where it properly belongs in the discussion on the future economic partnership that will take place next year. We need at the same time to agree in the withdrawal agreement that we will have a big, generous free trade agreement on what they call Super Canada lines. And we should dedicate the so-called implementation period to getting those negotiations right. That leaves almost 2 years, and that should be plenty of time to do a zero-tariff, zero-quota trade deal, given that we start from a position of zero tariffs and zero quotas. Point 4, are you counting them? Point 4, we should, I'm afraid, withhold at least half of the cash we're about to pony up until the free trade agreement is concluded at the end of 2020. I have never known a major EU negotiation not to conclude with the financial settlement, and we need to restore the proper order and incentives to the talks. Fifth, we need a Secretary of State for the United Kingdom for what they call no deal, or rather exiting on WTO terms. A department with real powers across Whitehall to make things happen. I don't believe that we will exit without a deal. I think that's totally unnecessary. But it is only responsible of the government to make proper preparations. And lastly, sixth, we need urgently as a country to recover our confidence and our self-belief and to stop treating Brexit as if it were a plague of frogs or a murrain on our cattle or some adverse weather event that has to be managed. Brexit presents massive opportunities to escape a European model whose signature economic project, after all, is the euro, that is still causing 35% of the people of Greece to be in absolute poverty and grossly unnecessary unemployment in much of the EU. A European economic model whose regulatory overload, according to Peter Mandelson and Gordon Brown, no less, costs about 5 to 7% of EU GDP. We need to have the courage and the self-belief to do things differently if we want to and if we need to. The UK is the 5th biggest economy in the world. Under this Conservative government, we are putting in record levels of infrastructure investment. We're putting in the roads, the rail, the housing, the bridges and the power stations to give business the platform for growth and investment. And by the way, now is the time, I think, to progress the admirable suggestions of Professor Alan Dunlop of Liverpool University. I think I saw my friend Karen Bradley supporting him last night, and develop plans for a bridge between Scotland and Northern Ireland, as I think the visionary leadership, what is it, 19, 20 miles? You and the visionary leadership of the DUP has already been urging for some time. It is a far shorter distance than that covered by some bridges around the world, from Shanghai to Ningbo, for instance. The problem isn't Beaufort's dike or whatever, this dike under the water. The problem isn't a lack of funds. The problem is an absence of political will. And what you need, in addition to the leadership of the DUP on this matter, I'm afraid you also need strong regional government to drive such projects. And I remember that's what you needed in London to get projects like Crossrail done. And I hope, therefore, that Stormont can be revived as fast as possible. I really do. And I know there are difficulties, I know there are compromises that have to be made, but I really hope it can happen. Because you need that regional government as a champion for investment and commitment to this great part of the United Kingdom. And look, nobody can doubt, looking at what you've done over the last year or so, nobody can doubt the effectiveness of the DUP in chiseling money out of the Treasury. You know, quite right. As a former mayor, I like your style. But there is much more to be done, and may I say that it must be done on behalf and with the active support of all the people of Northern Ireland, all the communities of Northern Ireland. And if we continue to make those investments throughout this country, then, as I say, we'll create the seedbed for business to flower. And if we get the right Brexit deal that gives us freedom to trade, to innovate, as an entire United Kingdom, then we can turbocharge the areas in which this country already leads Europe, if not the world. And I'm delighted to say that Wrightbus already sells its products to China and India and Singapore. In fact, I spent a large part of my time as Foreign Secretary trying to sell Wrightbuses. And I did, quite right. We sold the, and when I was mayor, I think we definitely did a few deals. We sold the Bendy buses to someone else. We sold the Bendy buses to Malta, where they did all, I'm afraid they jackknifed and caught fire. It was a point that was raised with me by the Maltese when I was there. But think how much more we could do. Think how much more we could do if we do genuinely go ahead with those free trade deals that not only cut the cost of food and textiles and shoes for people in this country, but which would open up markets for Northern Ireland products, for UK products around the world. At a time when free trade needs a powerful global champion, and when people around the world, I can tell you, are yearning for us in the United Kingdom to play that role. This is the moment, this is our moment to play to our strengths and to maximize those strengths with our regulatory approach. We have such fantastic advantages in this country, the biggest tech sector anywhere in this hemisphere, the biggest financial sector, by far the best. Universities have more Nobel Prizes, a point I think I made in Russia. We have more Nobel Prizes from one Cambridge college than from Russia and China combined. I don't think I made the point in China as well, but never mind. It's true. From one Cambridge college from Russia and China combined. We have by far the most dynamic and creative culture and media industries. Let me ask you if you can remember, last year seems a distant memory, but can you remember which was the biggest grossing movie of 2017? Anybody remember around the world, the biggest grossing movie around the world of 2017 was... Okay, it was Star Wars, I'm going to say. Whatever it was called, it was the latest edition of Star Wars. But where does George Lucas propose to make the follow-up biopic of the life of Obi-Wan Kenobi? Anybody know? You've been following this speech. Here in Northern Ireland. But can anybody remember what is the name of the weapon so famously wielded by Obi-Wan? The throbbing, enigmatic, humming thing. It is a lightsaber. A lightsaber, and where did they make the first lightsaber, ladies and gentlemen? Does anybody know where they made the first lightsaber? Where was the lightsaber born? I can tell you. The lightsaber was first created in my own constituency of Uxbridge and South Ruislip. So take the scenic splendour and cinematic expertise of Northern Ireland, add that to the sheer raw inventiveness of Uxbridge, and you have the creative genius of the whole United Kingdom. The only country. The only country to be a net exporter of music to the United States, and in the words of that great Northern Irish singer, Van Morrison, "Sir Van, it is time we all moved from the dark end of the street to the bright side of the road," if I've got that right. And if you have that tune going around in your heads for the rest of the afternoon, then I'll have done my job, my friends. We have time to get this right. Believe me, we have time to get this right. We have an absolute duty to get this right. And I hope that we Conservatives can continue to work with you as proud and passionate unionists, backing our union against all those who would seek to divide us, and believing in our amazing and ingenious United Kingdom and in what we can do together. Thank you very much.
The Democratic Unionist Party is delivering for everyone in Northern Ireland. Our influence at Westminster was able to secure an additional £1 billion for Northern Ireland in last month's budget. The Belfast Region City deal proposal had stalled. That is why the DUP ensured that the proposal was at the very heart of the Confidence and Supply Agreement. This is why there was an announcement in the budget statement of £350 million, which will enable the proposal to get off the ground. This will mean investment in jobs, investment in infrastructure, 20,000 new jobs benefiting not just Belfast city centre, but a wider region from Ballymena through to Kilkee. In the aftermath of the tragic Primark fire, our businesses and retailers in Belfast city centre are struggling. That is why I, along with my DUP colleagues in Belfast, went to the Chancellor to request additional funds to support our city centre. I am pleased that the Chancellor listened to what we had to say and was able to secure £2 million of additional funds towards this much needed support. While others boycott, the DUP's influence and hard work at Westminster is delivering for all right across Northern Ireland. Whether it's in Belfast or securing progress for the city deal for Strabane and Londonderry, the drawdown of £300 million for shared education, additional money for health and education. It is the DUP that is working to build a better and brighter future for all in Northern Ireland.
Ladies and gentlemen, just 2 minutes to the next speaker. Please take your seats. 2 minutes.
Weeks ago, as a nation, we paused, along with people around the world, to mark the 100th anniversary of the armistice between the Allies and Germany, bringing an end to the Great War. It is right that we pay tribute to the service and the sacrifice of those who gave so much a century ago. They served with honour, courage, and commitment, just as all those who serve in armed forces today do so as well. The Armed Forces Covenant is our nation's commitment to those who serve in our armed forces. It is a pledge that those who set self aside for state will not be disadvantaged, whether in housing, education,